I was so shocked to hear that about Google. I mean, this guy was a global director, so he knew not to make slides of anything that had to do with financial or any proprietary information. He was really just going to talk about job hunting. And yet, you know, the whole legal system kind of came down on him for that. But anyway, so it occurred to me that that is a corporate cultural thing. And some people who say, I don't want to work in a place that has a lot of rules, you know, that where you have to go through 6 layers of activity before you can get permission to do something as simple as that. They would just say, to heck with you, it's not worth it. Although maybe for the salary he makes at Google, it's definitely worth it. But it's a cultural thing, it's a corporate thing that some people, I think, would be very offended by. And it's just like, I don't want to work for a company like this, where I'm so constricted by all of these rules and the bureaucratic process and so forth. Culture matters. And sometimes when you don't get a job because they say you're not the right cultural fit, or you don't feel that you're the right cultural fit, we usually concentrate on, yeah, these are all young people that go out every Friday and party. That is just a teeny little piece of cultural fit. Cultural fit is enormous, and it's something to consider. Some of you have been unemployed so long that you don't really care. The cultural fit has gone down on your priority list, and paycheck has gone up, and benefits has gone up to the top. But for those of you who have the luxury of being a little bit selective as to where you go to work next, one of the considerations that you're going to make is, am I comfortable in this environment, in this cultural environment, with these people who have this belief system and act in this way, in a company that has these kinds of policies? Am I happy here? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what is culture? Anybody want to venture a definition? Don't be looking on your phones. Just kind of, values. Values is part of it. I'm sorry, what?
The way you interact with each other, what you value as far as personal values, company values.
Okay. Values is a big part. Lots of companies will have on their website a list of values. And one of the most impressive lists of values that I can remember looking at was with Enron. Enough said. Brian?
Feel comfortable doing in the workplace with each other, how they feel.
Okay, what people feel comfortable doing in the workplace with each other.
Yeah, I was going to say it's values as they're actually expressed in action.
Action, what a concept. All right, values as they are expressed in action. What the dictionary says, and it gives 2 definitions, sort of, the behaviors and beliefs characteristic of a particular social, ethnic, or age group. That's one way to look at it. And in anthropology, it is the sum total of ways of living built up by a group of human beings and transmitted from one generation to another. And in terms of when we think of corporate culture, I want you to think of some of the companies that have been around for a long time. IBM came to mind. And I talked about this before because I went to an Anita B. Presentation, an event that was held at the IBM Design Center. And when you think back to the 50s and the 60s, when what was the uniform at IBM? A blue suit and white shirt. And everybody looked like that. Everybody had that look. And I looked over at one of the girls that was working in the design center, and she had on some kind of a weird t-shirt. She had purple and green hair. She had all kinds of eye makeup and jewelry and so forth. And I said, I cannot tell you how excited I am to see that you are working for IBM. Because times have changed, and that whole culture has changed. But it was passed down through generations. And some of our stayed, I don't want to say conservative, but really long-lasting corporations have a culture that defines who they are and how they do business. And they have passed it down from CEO to CEO to CEO, and it stays. Who establishes the corporate culture? What do you think?
Leadership.
Leadership. Yeah, it trickles down. sometimes whoever the CEO, if that CEO is a strong person, they set the definition of what the culture is going to be for that company. And it just trickles down all the way. So whether it's a relaxed, fun-loving culture, we're going to talk a little bit about that, or whether it's sort of a conservative, follow the rules, think in the box, whatever. It comes from the top. So the CEO. And the IBM piece, so anybody know the name of that guy on the left? Thomas Watson. And then he was the CEO for something like 40 years, and then gave it to his son, so there was another generation that took over as well. And so he established the look that you had to have. Now, the story of Intel and AMD, some of you who have worked at either or both of those companies can correct me if I'm wrong. I have a sort of a limited storyline in my brain. Both of my sons worked for AMD, and when I moved back to Austin, AMD was in one of their major battles over infringement of ideas with Intel. And they were about to have their annual AMD employee appreciation gathering, which was going to be at the Irwin Center. And they had people with robots and dressed up like Star Wars folks. But they had a poster, and I cannot believe I would ever have thrown this poster away, but I couldn't find it, and I looked a long time. But the poster was based on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So Chad knows what I'm talking about. So Andy Grove he was the third employee at Intel. And Jerry Sanders was the CEO of AMD. They both had worked at Fairchild Electronics, I believe. And Andy Grove was an engineer, and Jerry Sanders came out of marketing and took their big chunk of change that they had and started their opposing companies. But that one of the reasons I believe, as I understood it, that Intel had such great technology was just his personality. He came from an engineering mindset, and so that culture was more technical and it was all geared into the whole technology piece and kind of a conservative piece and a linear thinking piece, and that was the culture. Whereas Jerry Sanders, there was a lot of fun. It was, if you meet your goals, we're having a party. And it was more fun. It was more lighthearted. It was exciting. And they were always nipping at the heels of Intel. And Intel would have these they'd tear up the AMD signs at trade shows and do all of these terrible practices. And Intel was sort of the white hat people, or at least that's the way I heard it from my little biased viewpoint. But they had this poster where Jerry Sanders' face was like Indiana Jones. So it was, they photoshopped him in. And so he was there with his trophy wife on his arm. And the Nazis, or Temple of Doom, was that Nazis? I don't know. But the evil people were not only Andy Grove, who was there looking all sinister and in the shadows, but all of the attorneys. All of the Intel attorneys were featured on that poster as well. What have I left off, Chad?
That captures it. Yeah.
It was hilarious. And it's the sort of thing that somebody does when they have a great sense of humor. And so it was just more fun. And after Jerry Sanders stepped down, when I saw Jerry Sanders at that employee appreciation thing, he came out on a big TV screen. He wasn't there. But he was about that age, and he was wearing black leather pants. And it was quite shocking. You'd never see Andy Grove in black leather pants. But at any rate, so they set the scene, and then when Jerry Sanders left, they brought in Jose. I forgot his last name. He was, Garcia or something like that. Hector Ruiz. Yeah. That was almost Jose Garcia. Okay, I was so close. I was so close. But I remember Hector was a lot more like that. And he came in and immediately instituted a clean desk policy and talked a little bit about what you could have and couldn't have on your desk. And anyway, so it's just a different approach, a different culture. So here's my question. What would define a good corporate culture for you? What would you be happy with? What are some of the components of a good culture for you?
No bullshit. That's one of the companies I've interviewed with, that's one of theirs.
You're interviewing with them, and that's
That's one of their corporate,
yeah.
the other one that they had was, don't argue with the customer.
I'm sorry, what?
Don't argue with the customer. They put asterisks, but you know.
I love them already.
Atlassian.
Oh, it is, Atlassian, okay. What else? What else are components of culture that would make a big difference to you, Scott?
Transparency.
Transparency, that's a big thing these days. What else?
Stability.
Job policy.
Civil.
What was that? Job policy?
Dog.
Dog friendly.
Bring your dog to work.
Diversity.
I think some of the other things are more like, you know, I think, is it Google that wants to encourage their employees to speak up? You know, they don't want mice, they want people that will speak up and, you know, kind of kick the tires and challenge things. Okay.
So creativity and innovation are encouraged.
Yeah.
I think humility and respect.
No jerks.
That's a hard one to. Respect. And you said something else. Humility.
Embrace change. Because I
Open to change,
Embrace, yeah.
embrace change.
Because a lot of managers are afraid to treat people with humility because they're afraid they're not going to be respected if they treat you with humility. But I think that.
Anything else?
Perks.
Perks.
The other one is maturity, without stuffy questions. Maturity, not being too sophomore. I mean, that can be fun, but
Wait, now what?
tired after a while.
Now, what do you mean by maturity?
I mean, well, it encompasses respect, professionalism, just
Professionalism,
knowing how to
okay,
act and, you know,
Yeah,
treat
sometimes
people
when your frat
properly.
brother starts a company in his garage, 20 years later, it still feels that way.
Yeah, professionalism, that's the other sort of,
Aesthetics and style, that there's a desire to have a comfortable environment for people to work in.
Right.
And
A caring type environment
Right.
where,
Yes, Salesforce does like the Ohana, which is the everybody is family. You know, everybody is family, and they also have a real big value on giving back and service.
it has to be fun.
Okay, we could go on, and we might come back and visit this some more as you think of more things about what's important to you. Yes?
I just want to say that as the world's changing, it's important to know whether or not you're going to work virtual. That's as much a part of culture as not. Because
flexible, yeah, right.
Flexibility.
if you're looking for a culture and you're going to work at home, it may be tough.
Also, investing in education. A lot of companies,
Yes.
some companies start out by doing that, and then they kind of pull those funds, and getting those, you know, once or twice a year things are actually really, I think, inspiring to our employees. It's just costly for companies.
I heard there's a Zig Ziglar quote quote that I used to have in my cubicle that said, the only thing worse than training somebody and then having them leave is not training them and having them stay. Okay, so we're going to come back to this, but it's good to understand what are some of these things. Some of these things you can, some of these things are institutionalized and you don't have a say, but some of these things you can negotiate once you've been hired, you can negotiate that as part of your salary. So it's something to think about, flex time and working remotely and that sort of thing, and your dog, who knows. All right, another question. How can you tell if a company has the culture that you're looking for? How can you tell?
Talking to people that work there.
It is hard. One of our people, who's not here today, but she took a job that she thought, her big thing is right here, customer. She's all about the customer. And she took a job that she thought, she really covered that in the interview. And she thought that was going to be a great job. And she was so excited. She kind of was able to even define her own role, and she had some autonomy. And it turned out that is not the way it worked out at all. And there was some breaking of the rules. There was an ethical problem. And she debated and debated, should I speak up? I think if I speak up, because the CEO's best friend is the one that's doing the actions, and it's probably going to cost me my job, and I was already unemployed a long time, and should I do it, should I not do it? And she did it, and she spoke up about the behaviors, and she did lose her job, so it all happened that way. But she said, now that I've been burned, that is my most important. And so, and I forgot one other thing about Monday Mentoring is coming up. I'm going to give away 2 free tickets to Monday Mentoring. But at any rate, so she's going to go to that where you're able to be mentored by, they have 40 different women executives it's speed networking, but she's going to be talking to them about, this is what I'm looking for, companies that value this. How do I find them? Do you know some companies that you can suggest? And then I'm going to go after those companies. And so it is very difficult. Can you give me a couple of ways that you might know whether a company shares some of these?
So Glassdoor.com is one, and the other is if you know somebody or talk to somebody who works for the company.
Okay. Glassdoor has all of these things where you rank the company and the people that you work with and the company and the CEO, how the CEO performs. So that's a really good one. Having informational interviews with people to work at these companies and ask them, what is the culture like? These are my particular requirements in a company. You're interviewing them. You're sizing them up as well. It's not just, they're looking at you.
I recently had some interesting insight. I found some articles, and they were sort of like behind. I followed a name, and one happened to be with the HR director of the company I'm interested in. And, she flat out said what some of the culture was, and also gave me some of the words I knew they wanted to hear. So, and the company was also having a lot of publications, reading the quotes from those just gave me.
Yeah, the senior people that establish what the culture is going to be, vet them, look them up and see what were the white papers that they wrote and what were the reviews and all those sorts of things. So you're going to do as much as you possibly can. One of the things that you might be able to tell if this is a company might like to work, those of you who are looking for humor, is the job postings. Oh, yeah. The job descriptions. So Shannon mentioned Siete. Among the companies that have gotten a lot of money, Siete is a local company, the number 7. It's a Spanish company, Spanish-owned company, and they have 7 people in the family. It's family-owned and operated, so it still has the family feel to it. And one of the family members, the sister, had a number of different autoimmune diseases, and so they started to experiment with gluten-free, soy-free Mexican food products, so tortillas made of cassava and almonds, and they have a cashew queso and that sort of thing. And it has been such a successful line. So many people these days have gluten problems and celiac and so forth, and so their line is really popular. And they scraped together, before this huge infusion of money, they had been able to raise $1 million. And they were making something around $1 million a year. The company that invested in them is an East Coast company that only invests in Hispanic-owned businesses that make $1 million or more, and gave them $90 million. Gave them $90 million. Okay, so I put all of their jobs on, their customer service person is called Customer Delight. That's the division, the Customer Delight division, and they have a Customer Delight Fulfillment person, for example. Their marketing person is called Swiss Army Knife. If that tells you anything. But, so I wanted to read this, and you can't really read it very well, but I'm going to read it for you. Here's their Customer Delight job description. And it says, yeah. So it says, are you the kind of person that's affable yet dependable? Would you describe Eric Idle's Always Look on the Bright Side of Life as your anthem? Is your typing speed faster than 60 words per minute? Do you find yourself smiling at random points through the day? If so, we'd like you to help delight our fans and customers by providing amazing customer support and just generally adding another positive presence around the office. Some tasks you will be asked to complete are responding to customers, making us laugh, having open and earnest conversations, turning customers' potential issues into incredible experiences. We believe in old-fashioned hospitality. You will only be a good fit for this role if going the extra mile feels ordinary. Please send us a resume and cover letter and provide us with the contact information of at least 3 people who are not related to you. We also request that you fill out this culture questionnaire. There are no wrong answers. We want to learn more about you. So here's the culture questionnaire. And it starts with, what does CA take? I got to fill out a questionnaire. In applying to work at CATA, you should know that you are applying to a company that is family-run and close-knit. We hang out on the weekends. We make fun of each other and talk more than we should at work. Culture fit isn't the only thing we're looking for in an applicant, but it is a huge part. The questions below are an opportunity to tell us more about yourself and what you care about. My bio, and they switch back and forth from my to I. My bio in exactly 7 words. No more, no fewer. My favorite taco is, the movie I have to watch every time I stumble across it on TV is, what book do you think everyone should read? If you could host a dinner party with 3 guests, living or dead, who would they be and why? I will burst into song if so-and-so comes on. Which famous fictional character do you identify the most with and why? The best meal I've ever eaten was, I am a fan of these brands. What place in the world do you find perfect? So that tells me a lot about the company. Number 1, it tells me that I would love to work there. I would love to work there.
Except for hanging out with my coworkers, I don't know about that.
But I don't know how they're going to deal with this. One of the questions on the FAQs on their website was, my store keeps running out of your products. So they have to ramp up production-wise, and they have to ramp up, personnel-wise, and to take a little close-knit family-run organization like this and scale it up and still try to keep that homespun kind of flavor to the organization, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So we'll see how it works. But it could be that if they continue to hire smart people who share their cultural values, that they'll be able to do it.
And do they pay them well?
I'm sorry, what?
And do they pay them well?
That I don't know. I don't know anything about the pay. Lots of people, to get a job that they love, in a place that they love. I mean, how many of you could have made more money, but you stayed with the company because you loved the company? A handful, maybe a dozen of you.
I would have. I loved the company, but they didn't love me. So.
Oh, unrequited love. That's the saddest, you're right. But that's the point, is lots of times if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. No, but if you're really happy in a company, that you'll stay there, because even though you know if you moved, or if you moved on, you could make more money. And Dilbert is kind of the antithesis of CAT. And in a humorous but tragicomic way, he talks about the dysfunction of so many American companies. And I found this Dilbert Principle book in the attic, and I've been kind of laughing and crying over it. So you can read it. Is there anybody that can't read that? Can you all see it? So there's a whole section on just the cubicle approach. The cubicle approach is mind-numbing in itself. And if you're in a call center, all that. I prepare to enter the sensory deprivation chamber. I will experience no mental or physical stimulation for hours. All that, and I get paid too. What a privilege. And then Catbird, evil director of human resources, no offense for you HR people. We've installed surveillance cameras to monitor your work. And of course, every Dilbert cartoon is based on people saying, this has happened in our company. It's all real. Okay, or sort of real. We've installed surveillance cameras to monitor your work. It might seem like an unconscionable assault on your privacy, but you'll get used to it. And this guy says, I'm already a little bit used to it. Used to what? He's already, become one of them, one of the undead, the living dead. Okay.
They're already monitoring your email and your data, so,
Yeah, we're getting used to it. I think that's the end of it. But culture is a thing. And it can, the title of this was corporate culture. It can make you or break you. It can make you the happiest person in the world, where you cannot wait to go to work every day because you love that job in that place with those people. You are so happy. And it can make you just want to, hang yourself from the rafters because you're miserable every time you set foot in the building. You start having hives and heebie-jeebies. So culture. Yes?
I once read a job description I do partner marketing, and it said, if you love partners, puppies, and people in the description. I'm like, yeah.
And see, that's the kind of thing, sometimes companies are really smart about putting that sort of thing in. I was all into the P's. Partners, puppies, and people. There was one that said, in fact, I've used this in my LinkedIn profile. It was a job posting looking for a paralegal or a legal assistant, and they said, we're just a bunch of bleeding heart liberal. We are your very best friends. Sorry, I left the best part off. We are your very best friends at one of the most terrifying times in your life. We are criminal defense attorneys. And they said, we're just a bunch of bleeding heart liberal Democrats. Well, we've got one Republican. We keep him for debate purposes. And they made the whole thing sound like so much fun that I would love to work there. One place said, we don't have much to offer, but we have a terrific coffee machine. And that made one of our people, Frank, whatever he was, starts with an L. He applied for a job there and got it, and that was what hooked him. Sometimes it doesn't take much, All we want is a little humor, a little kindness, a little, something where somebody says, "This is a great place to work. Come work with us."